Alright guys, Punisher Max 17 here, and this is going to be a little different than most of my usual videos. This is going to be a tutorial video for painting and airbrushing and panel lining. Now, airbrushing and panel lining are going to be involved in this tutorial. I'm also going to do a tutorial about detailing, hopefully reasonably quickly after this tutorial. I had a request for one of these, and I thought, why not? I'll try doing it and see how it goes, and hopefully this turns out pretty decently at least. So what you see before you are some parts for the HMM Berserk Fury. Now, if you watch my previous work in progress, you'll know these are the parts that have to be painted on it, the purple parts, to assemble the inner frame. So we have a few parts here, you know, 10, 15, and got to paint them. Now, what I do is I panel line my parts, and I also pre-shade my parts, and I detail them too. What we're going to start off doing is painting them, airbrushing them. And I do pre-shading, which means that I do a darker color around the corners and edges, and then I fill in the holes with a lighter color. But you're going to see all that in detail and in video form here soon, so don't worry if you don't understand what I'm saying. What we need to understand right now is you got to primer the parts first. What I use for primer is Krylon white primer right here. For light colored parts, anything that's not black essentially, I use white primer. And for parts that I'm going to be painting black, I use gray primer. I thought I had some out here, but I don't have any on hand. But same stuff, but gray. You just shake it up real well, and you do regular spray painting, just back and forth a couple times until it's fully covered. You don't need it to be coated, just enough to make the paint stick on there. It's a little difficult to film me spray painting something, so I'm not going to have a demonstration of that part, but the other parts of the process I am going to have a demonstration of. So yeah, you cover everything in primer first. All of the area that you're going to be painting or airbrushing needs to be primered. And this is the cheapest stuff you're going to get probably. It's $3 a can, I think, and it covers a lot of pieces, decent amount of pieces. You can probably do you can do a high grade Gundam on one can of these. You can do a master grade on 1 to 2 cans. So you get a decent amount of worth out of a can here. So, without further ado, I'm going to primer these parts, and then we will see what they look like after that. Okay guys, I have primered the parts, and they are here. Now, you probably can't tell a whole lot of difference. Now, that's because it's white primer, and they're already close to white as it is, just a very light purple color. It's going to be a little more significant of a difference on darker colors, but that's nothing to worry about. You'll know when it's primered. You don't exactly need a tutorial for that. And, yeah, so this is the parts primered. So now is the first round of pre-shading is the next step. Now, this is when you take your darkest color you're going to be painting with. And these are going to be a lavender color, so I'm going to be in the purple range of things. And I use Tamiya paints right here. Tamiya acrylics. This is gloss purple, at least the canister is. And, now, I use acrylics because, quite frankly, it's what is available to me around here, decently available at least, reasonably. Other people use enamels, lacquers. Acrylics is the first thing I ever use, so it's kind of what I've stuck with because it's what I know. There's nothing wrong with enamels or lacquers, though. If that's what's available to you or it's what you use, that just, it's your thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with any one of the three. And now this thinning, how I thin the paint and stuff here is only going to apply to the acrylic paint because you thin them differently with different thinners, but this is Tamiya acrylic, as I said. Now this originally is a gloss purple, but I have already recolored it down to a much lighter purple because I don't need a real dark. You just want it 1 or 2 shades off for the darker color to the lighter color. So what you do is, what I do is I take the cap here of the paint and I just pour a little bit in there. It doesn't take a whole lot because you're going to be adding thinner to this. So you just add a little bit in there. Probably going to need a little bit more, to be honest. Just to be safe. You can always pour it back in the bottle. And then you take this 91% isopropyl alcohol, and that's what thins Tamiya acrylic paints. and it's pretty cheap to get. You can get it at a Walmart, any sort of department store, things like that. And you just add about 50% to it. So let's see if I can do this on the camera. Now some spilled off to the side there, of course. Trying to do this in frame, but you add about 50% paint, 50% thinner, and then you just stir it up like so with a paintbrush or something. Get it all mixed together. Now sometimes you'll have to experiment around with this just to make sure you get the right ratio of paint to thinner. You know, it takes some work, it takes some time learning it. You know, I'm not even going to say that I get it right every time now, because I absolutely don't. Sometimes it's too thin, too thick, and you'll have to adjust it. It's just something you got to do. So that is thinning the paint. After that, we move on to the airbrush. And what I use here is a Iwata Eclipse HPCS. Mine is a little dirty from flat coating and stuff. I need to clean it off, but it's what it is. It's a dual action gravity fed airbrush, meaning paint goes into the little cup right up here, and you push this down to feed the air into it, and you pull it back, which opens up this little pin that's inside there. I know you can't see it, it's not focusing well, but it's dual action, so that's how you do it. You press it down for air and you pull it back slightly the more paint you want to come out. You put the paint right in there. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple to use. You know, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but to be honest, the learning curve on it isn't too bad. You know, you use it a couple times and you really start getting a feel for it before too long. Okay, so I'm going to put paint in the airbrush, and then we will move on to airbrushing. Okay, so now we're ready for the first round of airbrushing. Have the paint put in the cup here, and as I said, this is a dual trigger airbrush, so you just push it down for air, you can hear there, and you pull it back for paint flow. You see it spraying out there. I'm not sure if it picks up the spray on the camera or not, but that's how you work it. Now, the airbrushes have different PSI levels, at least the air compressors do, and it kind of is different for everybody, to be completely honest. You'll usually find that spot you like it at just through a little trial and error. Usually it's somewhere around 20 though. That's always a good place to start. I use between 20 and 25 typically. So let's go ahead and start painting this piece. As you can see, you paint it along the part there where there's a panel line across the middle of that piece, as you can see, and then you also paint along the edges. I hope you're all able to see this okay in the camera. Never really done airbrushing on camera before, so had to try to get a setup here that I was actually able to airbrush decently well with. Okay, so now there we have the part panel lined all around the edges, or painted around the edges and along the panel line. Now, one thing you don't want to forget with these is places like this. Parts where it looks like, you know, it's going to meet up with another part or something, but often it actually won't. So you want to be sure you get that painted so that doesn't stick out as an unpainted piece of the part there. Okay. I think I went out of frame a little bit there, but there we go. Okay, so we have just completed the first stage of painting, and that was shading the corners, edges, and panel line areas. There's a good example of that here with this piece, as the panel line went through there, and you just follow it with the airbrush. And this is the point where my tutorial is going to get a little bit different than most other tutorials here on YouTube that you've probably seen. This is the stage where I panel line. And you're probably quite surprised about that, because, you know, I still have another round of paint to go, and logically it doesn't make much sense at this point. But I've tried other methods of panel lining, like most other tutorials have, you know, enamel washes, just in any kind of panel lining technique that I've seen has never worked for me, quite frankly. I don't know what I do wrong or what's wrong with the technique that I try, but it's just never worked. So through a lot of experimentation, I kind of found this way of doing it. And it's a little bit easier to just go ahead and do it and show you by example. Now what this is a brush pen. It's not a tip or anything, it's literally a brush with ink in there, as you can see. And you can get these at Hobby Lobby. They're a little expensive, they're like $5 or something, but they last a long time, and I think they work quite nicely. Now what we're going to do, we'll start on this piece here, is just kind of trace it over the line. Now you want to get the ink in the line, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't want to put ink out for me. But it doesn't matter if it's exactly in the line. Just kind of make sure that the ink does in fact get in there. Okay, and then you just wipe it off with your finger or a paper towel or anything like that. And you'll see that ink is now in the panel line. And you know, sometimes it stains a little bit of that purple paint, or you know, whatever paint you're coloring with, but that is the exact reason why we do it before having another coat of paint on there. Because I am going to finish this up. The panel lines on the side. Okay, so now we have all that panel line done there. But you see, it's a really dark black panel line. The pen is a very dark ink, and it stained a little bit from where I wiped it off. So, whenever we go in with the second coat of paint in here, and then we blend is what we do. You'll see that in a bit. But that takes away all the smudginess, darkness, and stuff from around the sides, because it's supposed to be dark there anyway, because it is a darker color. And it lightens up the black in the panel line itself. Now it's not going to be white or anything. The paint doesn't affect it that much because we are just blending it. And it lightens it up slightly, so it makes this black more of a medium purplish kind of panel line color. And it actually has a really cool effect. This is the same panel lining I did on my Schneider and my Red Horn and several other kits. And I love how it turns out, to be honest, because it does give that slight color tinge to the panel line instead of it just being a pure black that really stands out. It kind of goes with the kit a little more. Now we will also do this one. You can see have these little rivet kind of things on this piece. Got to put the panel line around. Oops, dropped it. You can see there where the panel line, if it would focus a little bit, the panel line is circling the rivet. Just very subtle, but it will look very good in the end. So I hope you guys don't think I'm crazy for my method of panel lining. I know it seems a little different, but I've yet to have this just not work at all on me. I quite like how it works. Notice there's a few things we missed here. These little parts right in here. Oops. Nudge the camera a little bit. And another reason this comes off so well is because you pre-shade around these panel lines. You do the pre-shading around them. So that gives it that gloss paint right in there where the panel line is. And it makes it pretty simple to just wipe off the excess ink, because it is the gloss paint. If it's the primer that's there, it makes it a little more difficult. Not sure why my camera isn't focusing at the moment, but so that is how I do my panel lining, and now we will move on to the second stage of airbrushing. Okay, so now we're panel lined, and we're ready to move on to the second round of painting. You see here I got a really light purple color in here, just some white and purple mixed together. And we're going to fill in the holes here, these and things like that, and then we're going to blend it. So, let's go ahead and get started. And also want to mention that the PSI on this is going to be typically a little bit higher than it was when you did the darker color, because you are going to blend it, so a little bit higher. Alright. You just want to get this lighter color really heavily put in those open spaces. Okay, guys, you can see how that is much lighter there. Hopefully you can at least. That put on the side, and then the side here. Okay, so now all the open spaces have been filled with the lighter color. And right now you're probably thinking that doesn't look too great, but that's why we blend it. So now, instead of being real close with your airbrush like we have been, you take your airbrush a step back, quite a ways really, far enough that you're not hitting any specific area of the part with the paint. You're just kind of hitting the whole thing. And you pull your airbrush trigger back farther than you typically do as well, getting a bigger flow of paint. And you just kind of want to blend it all, just like so. You just hit all of it. Get that lighter color mixed around everywhere on there. And there we go. Now you see that dark purple is nowhere near as standoutish on there. Can't think of a better adjective. But it's still noticeable. I'm also realizing now I probably should have chose a darker color of piece to do my tutorial on. You really can't tell a whole lot with it being such a light color. But you guys get what I'm saying, I'm sure. So, that is how you do the second round of pre-shading. And then, it's just on to detailing from there, really. You know, this is it seems like a long process, because this is the process you have to go through for every piece you paint with pre-shading. Unfortunately, you know, it can be pretty time-consuming depending on the pieces you're doing. But it's very rewarding in the end. It looks absolutely outstanding. You know, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty good, and it doesn't take that long to get the hang of. I know this piece here that I'm doing in this video probably isn't the best piece I've ever done. I know it isn't. But that's mainly because, you know, I'm trying out new setup for being filmed while painting. So, not getting quite the same way I usually paint, just doing it a little different, you understand. So, that'll be it for this part of the tutorial. Soon I'll have another not work in progress, but another tutorial up, and I hope you stay tuned for it too, about detailing the parts and flat coating them. So thanks a lot for watching this part of the tutorial, guys. Hope to see you again soon.